Story 1. I never thought I'd be writing a story like this, but after what happened at the hospital when my daughter was born, I need to get this off my chest. It's been 3 months now, and I'm still trying to process how someone could be so entitled and delusional. Let me start from the beginning. I'm a single mom, 26 years old, and I'd been planning for my baby's arrival for months. I chose the name Luna because I've always loved astronomy, and the moon has special meaning to me. My late grandmother used to take me stargazing when I was little, and she'd tell me stories about the moon and stars. Naming my daughter Luna felt like a way to honor that memory. My mother-in-law has always been difficult. Even though her son and I aren't together anymore, she insisted on staying involved in the pregnancy. At first, I thought it was sweet that she wanted to be a grandmother to my child. I was naive enough to think she just wanted to help and be supportive. From early in my pregnancy, she made it clear she didn't approve of the name Luna. She'd make comments about how it sounded pagan or mystical and wasn't appropriate for a Christian family. I tried to explain that it was just a name I loved, but she kept pushing alternatives. Karen, have you considered Mary? It's such a beautiful, traditional name. Me, I appreciate the suggestion, but I've already decided on Luna. Karen, what about Sarah or Ruth? Those are strong biblical names. Me, I understand you like those names, but Luna is what I've chosen for my daughter. Karen, Luna sounds like something a hippie would name their child. You want her to be taken seriously in life, don't you? These conversations happened constantly throughout my pregnancy. Every time we talked, she'd bring up different, better names and explain why Luna was a poor choice. I started avoiding her calls because I was tired of defending my decision over and over. When I went into labor, I called her to let her know I was heading to the hospital. I thought it was the right thing to do, despite our disagreements about the name. She said she'd come by later to visit once the baby was born. The birth went smoothly, and Luna arrived healthy and beautiful. I was exhausted but happy, holding my perfect little girl and marveling at her tiny fingers and toes. The nurses were wonderful, helping me with breastfeeding and making sure we were both comfortable. About 6 hours after Luna was born, I was resting in my hospital room when one of the nurses came in looking confused. Nurse, ma'am, there's a woman at the nurse's station asking about paperwork for your baby. She says she's the grandmother. Me, that's probably my mother-in-law. What kind of paperwork? Nurse, she's asking about birth certificate forms and name registration documents. She seems to think there's been some kind of mistake with the name. I felt a chill run down my spine. Surely she wouldn't try to interfere with official documents, would she? Me, can you tell me exactly what she said? Nurse, she told us that the baby's name was recorded incorrectly and that she needs to correct it before the paperwork is finalized. Me, the name is correct. Luna is what I chose, and I'm the mother. Nurse, that's what I figured, but she was very insistent. She has some kind of forms with her. I asked the nurse to bring her to my room so we could sort this out. A few minutes later, my mother-in-law walked in carrying a folder full of papers and wearing the fake smile she used when she was about to do something manipulative. Karen, oh, honey, how are you feeling? And look at this precious little angel. She went straight to the bassinet where Luna was sleeping, completely ignoring the fact that I looked exhausted and overwhelmed. Me, the nurse said you were asking about paperwork. Karen, yes, well, I noticed there was some confusion about the baby's name on the hospital forms. I brought the correct documentation to fix it. Me, there's no confusion. Her name is Luna, just like I told you. Karen, oh, sweetie, you're tired and emotional right now. You're not thinking clearly about what's best for her future. She opened her folder and pulled out several official-looking forms that she'd apparently filled out ahead of time. Karen, I've taken care of everything. I think Esther would be perfect. It's elegant and biblical, and she'll thank us when she's older. Me, us? There's no us in this decision. I'm her mother, and her name is Luna. Karen, Luna is a phase name. You'll regret it in a few years when people make fun of her at school. Me, People aren't going to make fun of a perfectly normal name. Karen, it's not normal. It's the kind of name teenage mothers give their babies when they're trying to be unique. That stung, especially since I was young, and she knew I was sensitive about people judging me for being a single mom. My age doesn't make me less capable of choosing my own daughter's name. Karen, I'm just trying to help. Esther is sophisticated and timeless. Luna sounds like a cat's name. I don't care what you think it sounds like. Luna is staying Luna. But she wasn't done. She actually pulled out a pen and started filling in more information on her forms. Karen, the hospital staff told me that name changes are easiest in the first 24 hours. After that, it becomes much more complicated. Stop filling out those forms right now. Karen, I'm trying to save you from bureaucratic hassles later when you realize you want to change it. I'm not going to change it. Karen, you say that now, but you'll see. Esther has such a lovely ring to it, don't you think? She actually started talking to the baby in the bassinet, using the name Esther like it was already decided. Karen, hello, little Esther, aren't you beautiful? Grandma picked out the perfect name for you. That's when I'd had enough. I pressed the call button for the nurse. You need to leave my room right now. Karen, don't be dramatic. I'm trying to help you make a mature decision. The mature decision is mine to make, and I've made it. Karen, fine. If you won't listen to reason, I'll just handle this myself. She actually got up and started walking toward the door with her folder of forms. Where are you going with those? Karen, to the nurse's station to submit the correct paperwork. Those forms are not correct. You can't submit paperwork for my baby. Karen, someone has to think about her future since you clearly aren't. The nurse arrived just as my mother-in-law was trying to leave the room with her unauthorized forms. Nurse, is everything all right here? She's trying to change my baby's name without my permission. Nurse, ma'am, only the legal parents can make decisions about birth certificate information. Karen, I'm the grandmother, and I'm looking out for this child's best interests. Nurse, being a grandmother doesn't give you legal authority over naming decisions. Karen, this girl is 19 years old and doesn't know what she's doing. I'm 26, and I know exactly what I'm doing. Nurse, ma'am, I need you to return those forms. You cannot submit birth certificate paperwork for someone else's child. Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm trying to prevent a mistake. Nurse, the only mistake would be allowing unauthorized people to interfere with legal documents. My mother-in-law reluctantly handed over her folder, but she wasn't done making her point. Karen, fine. But don't come crying to me when little Luna gets teased at school for having such a weird name. Nurse, ma'am, I think it's time for you to leave and let the new mother rest. Karen, I have every right to visit my grandchild. Nurse, not if you're causing distress to the patient. But instead of leaving, she sat down in the chair next to my bed and crossed her arms. Karen, I'm not going anywhere until we resolve this name situation properly. That's when the nurse called security. I felt terrible that it had come to that, but I was exhausted and overwhelmed, and I couldn't deal with her manipulation anymore. 2 security guards arrived within minutes. Security, ma'am, we need you to leave the room. Karen, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just visiting my grandchild. Security, the patient has requested that you leave, and you're refusing to go. Karen, she's making a huge mistake with this name, and someone needs to talk sense into her. Security, that's not your decision to make. Karen, I have rights as a grandmother. Security, you have the right to visit if you're invited and if you follow hospital rules. Right now, you're not following the rules. They escorted her out of my room, but I could hear her arguing with them all the way down the hallway. She kept insisting that she was trying to protect her grandchild from a lifetime of embarrassment. 20 minutes later, the charge nurse came to my room. Charge nurse, I wanted to update you on the situation with your visitor. Is she gone? Charge nurse, She's been escorted out of the building, but she made quite a scene at the front desk. She demanded to speak with hospital administration about our discriminatory policies. Me, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Charge nurse, don't apologize. We see family drama more often than you'd think. But I do need to ask, do you want to restrict her visiting privileges? Me, can you do that? Charge nurse, we can put a note in your file that she's only allowed to visit with your explicit permission and supervision. I agreed to the restriction because I needed time to recover without dealing with her drama. The next day, she tried to visit again and was turned away at the front desk. She called my phone repeatedly, leaving voicemails about how I was being unreasonable and keeping her from her grandchild. In one message, she actually said that she'd consulted with a lawyer about grandparents' rights and naming laws. Karen, I know you think I'm being difficult, but I've done research on this. There are legal precedents for correcting obviously inappropriate names when parents aren't thinking clearly. That voicemail made me realize how serious she was about this. She wasn't just expressing an opinion, she actually believed she had the right to override my decision as the baby's mother. I saved all her voicemails and documented everything that had happened at the hospital. My friends told me I should consider getting a restraining order, but I hoped she'd eventually calm down and accept reality. A week after we got home from the hospital, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. Karen, I think we got off on the wrong foot at the hospital. Can I come in and meet my granddaughter properly? Me? Only if you're here to visit Luna and not to argue about her name. Karen, of course, I just want to spend time with the baby. I noticed that she couldn't bring herself to say Luna's name, but I let her in because I thought maybe she was trying to make peace. For about 15 minutes, everything seemed normal. She held the baby, took pictures, and acted like a typical grandmother. Then she started up again. Karen, you know, it's not too late to change the name. I looked into it, and you have up to 1 year to amend the birth certificate. Me, we're not changing anything. Karen, I even found a lawyer who specializes in family law. He said that in cases where mothers are very young or under stress, sometimes family members can petition for corrections. Me, I'm not very young, and I'm not under stress about this decision. Karen, postpartum hormones can affect judgment. The lawyer said that's something courts consider. I couldn't believe she was still pushing this angle. She'd apparently spent the week researching ways to legally override my parenting decisions. Me, you need to accept that Luna's name is final. Karen, what if we compromise? Luna could be her middle name, and we use Esther as her first name. Me, there's no compromise needed because there's no problem to solve. Karen, think about her future. Think about job interviews and professional settings. Me, Luna is a beautiful, normal name that won't hurt her in any professional setting. Karen, people will think she's named after some pagan moon goddess. Me, people will think she's named after the moon, which is exactly what I intended. The argument went on for another 30 minutes before I finally asked her to leave. As she was walking out, she made one last attempt. Karen, I'm going to keep trying to talk sense into you. This isn't over. Me, yes, it is over. Luna is her name, and it's staying her name. Karen, we'll see about that. The next week, I got a call from someone claiming to be a social worker. They said they'd received a report about my fitness as a parent and needed to schedule a home visit. My heart dropped, thinking something terrible had happened. When I called back to verify the appointment, I found out that my mother-in-law had filed a complaint claiming that I was making irrational decisions that weren't in my child's best interest. She'd specifically mentioned the naming issue as evidence of poor judgment. The social worker who came to my apartment was professional and understanding. She could see immediately that Luna and I were both healthy and well cared for, and that the complaint was frivolous. Social worker, I have to ask about the name complaint specifically, since that was mentioned in the report. Me, she doesn't like that I named my daughter Luna. She wanted me to choose a biblical name instead. Social worker, That's not really a child welfare issue. Parents have the right to choose their children's names within reasonable bounds. Me Luna is a reasonable name, right? Social worker. Absolutely. It's not offensive, harmful, or inappropriate in any way. The social worker closed the case immediately and noted that the complaint appeared to be motivated by a family dispute rather than genuine welfare concerns. But the fact that my mother-in-law had involved child services over a name disagreement showed me how far she was willing to go. I decided it was time to set firmer boundaries. I sent her a text message explaining that she wouldn't be allowed to visit Luna until she could accept and use her actual name. Me, Luna, and I both deserve to be treated with respect. When you're ready to call her by her real name and stop trying to change it, we can discuss visits. Karen, you're using my grandchild as a weapon against me. Me, I'm protecting my daughter from someone who refuses to acknowledge her identity. Karen, her identity is more than just a name. Me, then prove it by using the name her mother chose for her. The back and forth continued for weeks. She'd alternate between angry messages about how unreasonable I was being and manipulative messages about how much she missed the baby. She still wouldn't say Luna's name. Finally, my pediatrician recommended that I speak with the hospital's family counselor about the situation. The counselor suggested that my mother-in-law might benefit from therapy to help her understand appropriate boundaries with grandparents. When I mentioned this to her, she was initially resistant. Karen, I don't need therapy. I need you to listen to reason. Me, the therapist can help you work through your feelings about Luna's name. Karen, there's nothing wrong with my feelings. There's something wrong with your decision. Me, if you want to be part of Luna's life, you need to accept that I'm her mother and I make the decisions. Karen, fine. I'll go to your stupid therapy sessions if that's what it takes. The family counselor worked with her for several weeks, helping her understand that her role as a grandmother didn't give her veto power over my parenting choices. It was apparently a difficult process because she kept insisting that she was just trying to help. After 2 months of therapy, she finally called me and said Luna's name out loud for the first time. Karen, I'd like to come visit Luna this weekend, if that's okay with you. It was such a small thing, but hearing her actually say my daughter's name felt like a huge victory. Me, that would be nice. Luna would love to see her grandmother. The visit went well, though I could tell she was still biting her tongue sometimes when she wanted to make comments about the name. But she was making an effort, and that meant everything to me. Luna is 4 months old now, and my mother-in-law has gradually accepted her name. She still slips up occasionally and calls her the baby or sweetie instead of using her name. But the therapy helped her understand that her feelings about the name don't override my rights as a mother. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd given in to her pressure and changed Luna's name to keep the peace. But every time I look at my daughter, I know I made the right choice. She looks like a Luna to me, and I can't imagine calling her anything else. The whole experience taught me that being a parent means standing up for your child, even when it's difficult, even when family members disagree with your choices. Luna deserves to have her identity respected from day one, starting with the name her mother lovingly chose for her. Story 2. I worked my butt off during my first year at Riverside Community College. Coming from a family where money was tight, I knew I had to excel academically to afford continuing my education. I developed a solid study routine, attending every lecture, taking detailed notes, and supplementing my learning with educational YouTube videos that explained complex business concepts in different ways. My hard work paid off. I maintained a 3.9 GPA and won the Dean's Excellence Scholarship worth $5,000 for the top student in my major. I was thrilled because it meant I could focus more on studies and work fewer hours at my part-time job. That's when I met Karen. During orientation week, this woman approached me in the library. Karen, are you the one who got the Dean's Scholarship for business? Me, yes, that's me. Karen, did you use any outside help to achieve your grades? My son is wondering how you beat his GPA. Me, no tutors or anything like that. I just study hard and watch educational videos on YouTube to understand the material better. Karen, so you used external sources that other students might not have access to. Me, YouTube is free. Anyone can watch the same videos. Karen, that doesn't seem fair to students who only use official course materials. I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. A few days later, I got called into the dean's office. Dean, I've received a complaint that you used unauthorized assistance for your academic performance. I explained my study methods again, lectures, textbooks, and publicly available educational videos. Dean, using educational resources is encouraged, not cheating. Your scholarship is completely legitimate. But Karen wasn't done. She started showing up to my classes, taking notes from the back row like she was gathering evidence. After a difficult economics exam, she cornered me. Karen, that test was too hard for someone to pass without cheating. I bet professors are secretly posting answer keys on those YouTube videos you watch. Me, that's not how educational videos work. They explain concepts, not give away test answers. Karen, I'm going to prove you're cheating, and my son will get the scholarship he deserves. For weeks, she filed complaints with every administrator she could find. Every complaint was investigated and dismissed. Then suddenly, her son stopped showing up to classes. My advisor called me in with shocking news. Advisor, Karen's son was caught hacking into the grade management system to change his grades. Me, are you serious? Advisor, it traced it back to his home IP address. He'd been doing it for months to boost his GPA for scholarship eligibility. His actual GPA was nowhere near second place. He wasn't even in the top 10. Me, so his mother was harassing me over a scholarship he was never eligible for. Advisor, it gets worse. The hacking was done on his mother's computer using her login credentials. She might face criminal charges. Karen's son was expelled and banned from the entire state college system. Karen herself was banned from campus after trying to confront me about a supposed conspiracy to frame her son. The dean apologized personally for the harassment I'd endured. Dean, some parents can't accept their children's failures and need someone else to blame. The irony was perfect. Karen spent months accusing me of cheating while her son was actually committing academic fraud. If she'd spent half that energy helping him study legitimately, he might have earned a real scholarship. I kept my scholarship, transferred to a state university, and graduated debt-free. Sometimes success makes you a target for people who can't handle their own failures, but the truth usually comes out in the end. Story 3. 3 years ago, I moved into what I thought was the perfect neighborhood. It's a quiet cul-de-sac with about 8 houses, and everyone seemed friendly enough when I first arrived. I'm a carpenter by trade, been doing it for 15 years now, and I work mostly on custom furniture and home renovations. When I bought my house, the garage was one of the main selling points because it gave me space to set up my workshop. Over the years, I've invested thousands of dollars in quality power tools. I'm talking about professional-grade equipment, a cabinet table saw, compound miter saw, router table, drill press, and a whole collection of hand tools that most people have never even heard of. These aren't your average hardware store tools. They're my livelihood, and I take care of them like they're made of gold. Now, let me tell you about my neighbor. She lives 2 houses down from me, and from day one, she had this attitude like she owned the whole street. She's one of those people who thinks being friendly means she can walk into your house uninvited and help herself to whatever she wants. The other neighbors just go along with it because it's easier than dealing with her tantrums. The problem started small. First, she borrowed my lawn mower without asking. I came home from work one day and found it sitting in her driveway, grass clippings still stuck to the blades. When I knocked on her door, she acted like it was no big deal. Karen, oh, I just needed to trim my edges real quick. You weren't using it anyway. Me, I wasn't using it because I was at work. You need to ask before taking my stuff. Karen, come on, don't be so uptight. We're neighbors. We share everything around here. I should have put my foot down right then, but I figured it was just a misunderstanding. Boy, was I wrong. Over the next few months, it escalated. She borrowed my hedge trimmer, my pressure washer, even my extension ladder. Each time, I'd find my equipment in her yard or garage, and each time she'd give me the same speech about how neighbors should share. I started locking my garage, but somehow she still managed to convince other neighbors to let her borrow their keys when I wasn't home. The final straw came last month. I was working in my garage on a custom dining table for a client when she showed up with her teenage son. Karen, hey, perfect timing. I need to borrow your table saw and some of those router things. Me, excuse me. Karen, my son has a woodworking project for school, just for the weekend. I looked at this kid who could barely make eye contact and clearly didn't know a screwdriver from a socket wrench. Me, these are professional tools worth more than most people's cars. I can't let untrained people use them. Karen, don't be ridiculous. It's just wood. How hard can it be? Me, hard enough that I spent 4 years learning how to use them safely. The answer is no. Karen, but we share everything in this cul-de-sac. Everyone knows that. Me, I never agreed to share anything, especially not equipment that could seriously hurt someone if used wrong. Her face turned red, and she got that look I'd seen her give other neighbors when she didn't get her way. Karen, you know what? You're being selfish. These tools just sit here most of the time anyway. Me, they sit here because this is my workshop where I run my business. I use them every single day. Karen, well, I think you're being unreasonable. Fine, be that way. She stormed off, dragging her son behind her. I thought that was the end of it. Again, I was wrong. 2 days later, I'm working late in my garage when I hear a car pull up. Through the window, I see a police cruiser in my driveway. My heart starts racing because I have no idea what's going on. The officer knocks on my door, and I invite him in. He seems polite but serious. Officer, I'm responding to a complaint about dangerous equipment being stored improperly. The caller said you're hoarding power tools and creating a safety hazard for the neighborhood. Me? I'm sorry, what? I'm a professional carpenter. These are my work tools. Officer, the caller also mentioned that you've refused to share equipment that the neighborhood has an agreement about sharing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I explained the whole situation to the officer, showed him my business license, and walked him through my properly organized workshop. Everything was clean, organized, and stored safely. I even showed him the insurance documentation for my equipment. Officer, well, everything looks fine here, but the caller was pretty insistent that you had stolen property. Mind if I take a quick look around just to close out the complaint? Me, of course. Go ahead. As we're talking, I notice Karen peeking out her window. The officer notices too. Officer, is that the neighbor who called? Me, that's her. Officer, you know what? Let me go have a chat with her. Sometimes these neighbor disputes get out of hand, and we can help sort things out. I watched from my driveway as the officer walked over to Karen's house. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her getting animated, pointing at my house and waving her arms around. The officer nodded and wrote some notes, then asked her something that made her face go pale. After about 10 minutes, the officer came back over to me. Officer, she's claiming that several neighbors have had tools stolen recently, and she thinks you might be involved. Me, that's crazy. Ask anyone on the street. I'm the one who's had stuff borrowed without permission. Officer, actually, that's interesting you say that. She just gave me permission to search her garage to prove you don't have anything of hers stored there. Something about the way he said it made me think there was more to this story. Officer, would you mind walking over with me? I might need you to identify your property if we find anything. We walked over to Karen's house, where she was standing in her driveway looking nervous. Karen, I don't understand why this is necessary. He's obviously the one hoarding tools. Officer, ma'am, you gave permission for the search. I'm just being thorough. He opened her garage door, and I couldn't believe what I saw. It looked like a power tool showroom. There were saws, drills, sanders, and equipment I didn't even recognize, all stacked up on shelves and workbenches. Officer, this is quite a collection. Are all of these yours? Karen, of course they are. I bought them all myself. But as we looked closer, I started noticing things that didn't add up. There was a miter saw with Johnson written in permanent marker on the side. A drill set that still had a price tag from the hardware store with someone else's name on the receipt taped to the case. Officer, ma'am, can you explain why this equipment has other people's names on it? Karen, I don't know what you're talking about. Me, wait a minute. That's my neighbor's table saw. He was just complaining last week that someone took it from his shed. The officer started examining more of the tools, and it became clear that Karen had been borrowing equipment from multiple neighbors and just never returning it. We found tools belonging to at least 4 different households, including some that neighbors had reported stolen. Officer, ma'am, I'm going to need you to explain how you acquired all this property. Karen, this is harassment. I want to file a complaint against both of you. Officer, you can file whatever complaints you want, but right now I need to understand why you have stolen property in your garage. It turned out that Karen had been systematically taking tools from neighbors for months. She'd borrow something, claim she returned it, then act surprised when people couldn't find their stuff. Some neighbors had even bought replacements, not wanting to cause drama by accusing her directly. The officer called for backup, and over the next hour, 3 other neighbors came over to identify their property. Karen kept insisting that everyone had given her permission to keep the tools permanently, but nobody backed up her story. Karen, this is ridiculous. We're supposed to share everything. That's how neighborhoods work. Officer, ma'am, borrowing without permission is theft, regardless of your interpretation of neighbor relationships. In the end, Karen was arrested for theft and filing a false police report. The officer told me that she'd tried to claim I was running some kind of illegal tool rental business and that she was just trying to protect the neighborhood kids from dangerous equipment. As they put her in the patrol car, she was still yelling about how unfair everyone was being and how she was just trying to be a good neighbor. Her son looked mortified, and I actually felt bad for him. The next day, I helped my neighbors sort through all the recovered tools in Karen's garage. It was like Christmas morning for everyone who'd lost equipment over the past year. One neighbor found a chainsaw he'd bought 2 years ago and thought he'd lost during his move. The best part? During the search, they found a notebook where Karen had been keeping track of everything she'd taken, including notes about when each neighbor would be at work so she could grab their stuff without being seen. She'd literally been planning these thefts and documenting them. Karen's house went up for sale a month later. I heard through the neighborhood gossip that she couldn't make bail and had to move in with relatives across town. Her son stayed with his dad and seemed much happier without her constant drama. The whole experience taught the rest of us neighbors to communicate better. We actually started a group chat where people can ask to borrow tools legitimately, and it's worked out great. Everyone shares willingly when asked properly, which is how it should have been all along. Sometimes I think about Karen's claim that we share everything in this cul-de-sac. She was right about one thing we do share now. We just don't steal from each other and call it sharing.